So sometimes people think of language learning as sort of another thing to be done or another like checkbox to tick off.
Mm-hmm.
But you've often talked about how it's more like training your mind, like physical exercise. So could you share more about what that means to you?
Absolutely. The attitude that a lot of people have to language learning, particularly if they've never engaged in it before, is, as you just said, that this is somehow it's a task that I can sort of envision, and I can look in some statistics and know that if I put in this much work over this much amount of time, I will, I should be able to get this result, and then kind of look at it learning that way. But it doesn't work that way. I mean, you might get a foothold in the language, by working systematically, in a certain calculated amount of time, but then you need to do something with it. You need to use it. You need to read it. You need to, develop it and really get to know the culture that, that it is a bearer of. And that just inevitably takes time. If you really want to learn a language, I think, that's a lifelong task. It's like commitment. It's like having a child, or at least like having a cat or something. you don't do it and get done with it. It's something that then becomes part of you and that you can develop further. I think that the taking a foreign language into your mind and processing it is something that makes, most people wouldn't think of doing that unless they had some practical need to go somewhere and do it right now if they haven't studied a language before. But I think that if you could sort of recast that idea and think, well, what's the value of learning a foreign language? I think you could say that our minds are programmed to work on language. We think through language. And when we take a new language in our minds, and we're like reprogramming ourselves. We're taking charge of our own minds. We didn't choose our native language. We didn't choose the language we first got programmed with. But you can reprogram your mind, and then you're taking charge of your own mind, and that sort of puts you in power of the process of your own thinking. It is like, I don't know, doing mental chin-ups or push-ups. It's like you can feel your brain strengthening when you do that. And so that's always been my motive and drive for learning languages, curiosity about how they work and the cultures and the literature behind them. But then once you start doing it, you realize that, I do feel that my mind is made stronger by not just language learning, but, total, like humanities type investing, really thinking about philosophical and theological questions, really trying to understand historical connections, really trying to understand, a great literature. That kind of thing, I do feel that it strengthens your mind, and that's, it's akin to that physical exercise, some sort of mental exercise that often I feel, I personally, because it's changed over the course of my life, I feel I don't get it that much when, as all too often, I find myself sitting in front of the computer all day, and when I'm very grateful to the fact that I can do the academy by Zoom, and that, I can reach people by YouTube. So I can get all these wonderful, digitized things, 16th century texts on Internet Archive, and, download all the, audiobooks from all the languages that I learn. I mean, it's an incredible resource. Nobody could ever deny that. But being an old man now, I can remember before I did that, and the way my mind felt when I worked kind of on pen and paper and just sitting by myself, just my ability to focus, my acumen, the sharpness of my intellect, my ability to retain things, my memory, are all definitely negatively impacted by just being plugged into digital time all the time. So when I take time away from that and sit and learn languages and stuff, then I literally feel the difference in my system. I mean, can you imagine how you would feel after you ate junk food all day? What if you ate 2 sticks of butter the way Sophie did, my dog who stole 2 sticks of butter over the past 2 days? If you ate 2 sticks of butter, can you imagine the way your whole system feels if you eat bad food? And then imagine you eat really good, healthy, cleansing food and how you feel after that. You can kind of feel the difference in your mind when you study with the kind of mindset that I've just described, rather than just, okay, I'm going to do this and get it done and check, as you said, check the box and think that I'm done with it, because you're not.
And how does language learning fit in with like broader humanistic study? Would you say it's like the foundation or sort of running in parallel?
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, it's the foundation. I guess if you were somehow only contained in one civilization, one time, one place, if you really want to go back and only know classical Chinese, and would take you a long way in East Asian culture, so you could just have that and say, I learned this language, and then from this point, I'm just going to go back, and there's thousands of years of texts of all different kinds, and I'm just going to plunge myself into reading history and philosophy and theology and stuff in this context. So I guess it would be still, you would have to learn that language, but from the perspective that I've taken, interest in one language awakens interest in other languages, and interest in the kind of philosophical questions that are asked over here makes you wonder what's being asked over there, and you know the historical relationship between them. So if you are interested in something broader than one time and place, one culture, one civilization, you want to go and look at other things, then translations are never like the same as reading in the original. So I don't think it's possible to say, I want to do Italian studies and read Italian literature and translation and watch Italian videos with subtitles and rely on AI to give me some conversational ability or feeding something like that. That compared to, again, reprogramming your mind in Italian are just worlds apart.
Mm-hmm. So you are using this metaphor of like reprogramming your mind. And so do you think there's something, like what's it like to have all these different languages, like being able to switch between all these different programs? Like what does it, yeah. So what, in the metaphor of like being fit, what does knowing a lot of languages look like? What does that mean?
Maybe I could compete in an Ironman competition. I don't know. It's more than more than on the sort of the mental muscle feel. It's a liberating feel that you have that ability to. I don't have to stay here in this corner of my mind. I could go to some other corner of my mind. I could phrase it in other ways. I could think in other abilities. It's akin to maybe saying, I want to stay fit, and one thing I could do is I could go running every morning. That would be a good thing if I got a systematic running every day morning. That's what I've done a lot of my life. But then there are other times I said, well, I went running on deck today. Next day I'm going to go swimming. And then I've got these nice kettlebells that I can use. Okay. And then, so if I do a variety of different things, compared to just doing one thing, I suppose. And each of those things not only works a different type of muscle, but, just makes you fitter overall. And then similarly, I think that, having that sort of range of interconnected knowledge, is there sort of maybe make a visual analogy. It's, you have these different hooks or pegs that are ultimately can be connected in more or less meaningful ways. And when you have more languages, it seems like you can make more connections.
I guess one last question is, like, you say that when you start learning languages, you just keep wanting to learn more. And I'm wondering, like, do you come to, like, have you come to, like, get interested in a culture because you started by being interested in the language? Or was it, like, the culture first and then the language second?
say both avenues at different times. Right before I started making YouTube videos, and in the late 90s, and when I was in Korea, I guess it was in the late 90s mainly, when I found myself in a position that, hey, I can study languages all day, every day. This is great. So that's what I did. And so I just wanted to learn the widest variety possible. I wanted to learn a different language from each family. I wanted to learn different things. And so I was just studying lots of different languages. And then I realized, reflecting on that mindset of checking off a tick box. I mean, basically, I checked off a tick box. I completed a whole Assimil manual. And then it's like, okay, well, I have some knowledge. I have something. I completed this, but then I came to them and it's like, well, I can't, I could do 20 languages at 15 minutes a day when I had all the time in the world to finish a beginner, a first level manual. But then, okay, now I do want to get what literature can I read? What second level manual is there? What further, how much deeper can I go? I can't do that with all of these. So, I checked this box. I'm going to put this over here but which ones can I take and go to the next level? It requires more and more investment of time and energy to get better and better. And so, yeah, there were some languages that, I just started learning them because I had the manual and I had a curiosity to learn a wide variety of languages. But when it came to that sort of second phase, which of these can I take further and learn more of? I got more interested in those languages. So, specific example would be, Russian. I mean, I started learning Russian the way I did because I had that manual. But then even as I was learning, I started getting more and more excited about, hey, this is Russian. I can read Dostoevsky if I keep going. I can read Tolstoy and Turgenev in the original. And so, yeah. So, I mean, I'd had I'd read Russian literature in translation when I was a teenager and had this phase of my life when I loved Dostoevsky, and that was always in the back of my head. But when I started studying Russian, it was just in with everything else, because I was, had the variety. And then it's just started thinking, hey, this is the largest Slavic language. This is the language that has all this literature. This is the language of a very powerful country, an important country. This is a language that, I've grown up in the shadow of a Cold War with this country. Who are these people? I'd like to know. I'm curious. So, just having a really good manual that gave you information about the mindset, about the culture, about the literature, the history, the traditions, just awakened your interest.
Do you think it helps make you more empathetic?
What?
Like learning another language? Because I guess the Russian example is like, usually they're like the enemy. But I guess, did learning Russian humanize them? Or were they already like obviously humanized before that?
To me, they were already obviously
right. Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Gosh, I wish I could say, learning languages will make you empathetic. But if you're a psychopath, I don't think that will change you. If you're an empathetic person, then yes, because you'll be able to feel empathy with, directly communicating with more people. So, if you're an empathetic person, if you like feeling empathy, if you're curious about other people and you want to know about them, then learning their language is obviously the gateway to doing that. And it is always so much more direct in the original than in translation. So, if you are inherently an empathetic person, then learning languages will enable you to empathize with much better, much more, much deeper. Okay. All right. So thanks for those questions too. And again, everybody who's watching, thank you for listening. And if you're interested in hearing the kind of things that I talk about, and in my academy, we have people like Xing Hao, large, we have most of the people who are actively participating are really intelligent, interesting people that it's fun to engage with in foreign languages. And so if you're at all interested in the kind of things that I talk about, come have a look at the Academy. You're free to pop by. Xing Hao will give you a link to come visit any class and see what it's like. So please consider that, and thanks for listening.